Welcome to I Had to Say It, the podcast where I talk about things that I feel need talking about, and sometimes they're not getting the attention they deserve. And your feelings, they're not under consideration. Hey everybody, on this episode of I Had to Say It, we're going to talk about something that I kind of personally see as a unintended good consequence of the corona pandemic, I guess we could call it. Going into this whole podcast thing, I had a lot of ideas and a lot of plans for what I was going to do. And then 2020 came along and kind of gobsmacked my plans just as the same as it did to everybody else. And a lot of things I wanted to talk about and I wanted to look at, and the way I wanted to do things kind of took a back seat because I was still looking to say the things that were on my mind and to say what I had to say, but a lot of the stuff I wanted to talk about initially, with everything else that was going on, just seemed so petty all of a sudden, and it really didn't seem like the kind of thing that anybody really needed to be focusing on at the time. And seeing as we haven't had any major disasters for a few days, and the political brouhaha has settled into a sort of a waiting phase, well, because contrary to what the media says, the Associated Press does not declare the winner of the United States elections, and nothing has officially been released yet because just like I said was going to happen, the losing side is taking every legal avenue they can and contesting every single vote. And we knew it was going to happen regardless of who won, quote-unquote, won the election, because neither side showed any indications they were going to have any kind of grace. And I find it kind of ironic that for the presumptive winner to come out and say, well, everybody just stay calm, nobody was worried about the right burning things to the ground, because nobody on the right said, if our candidate doesn't win, we're going to burn this bitch down. So I do see a certain degree of irony in that fact that it's okay, we won, so you other guys don't act like all of my voters said they were going to do. And I know I'm being overly general on that one. Not everybody that voted Democratic is the kind of asshole that's going to throw a tantrum and burn shit to the ground if they don't get their way. But a lot of them were, and a lot of the very vocal ones, the ones who were calling for that crap to happen, were on the left. It's not a matter of debate. It's not a matter of opinion. Anybody that knows or has listened to any of these episodes knows where I stand on this. They're all crooks. They're all bums, and they all need to be thrown the hell out. We need to implement term limits for everybody, not just the president. The system is broken. It needs to be revamped. That's all I'm going to say about it for now. Again, there's really nothing to talk about. It's playing out exactly how pretty much everybody knew it was going to play out. I'm not really going to harp on it too much until there's something specific to harp on. So instead, I'm going to kind of start getting back into some things the things that are generally on my mind and I think we need to be discussing, and I don't feel they're getting the proper attention in social situations and media and discussion and any kind of discourse. And the thing I want to talk about today is, like I said, it's kind of an unintended consequence of a good thing, in my opinion, that came from the corona pandemic and everything being shut down and everyone being kept home and forced into a completely different state of mind. And even with it being an election year and the kind of thing that normally everybody wants to stump for, I am so just tickled that the amount of pompous, self-righteous celebrities, be they musicians, actors, actresses, athletes, the amount of all of these people who have realized that the general American population has realized they're not nearly as essential as they think they are. And I have nothing against like celebrities going out and trying to back campaigns and use their popularity to get things that they feel passionately about to raise awareness. things like the Go Vote campaigns and the Do Your Part initiative type things, I'm totally fine with that. But it's the ones you see that just have this completely unrealistic disconnect from what regular people are dealing with, that somehow think they're just pithy, stupid, self-important bullshit is somehow going to make their fans feel better or feel connected to them. And the people that are sitting at home because they haven't worked in 4 months, living on ramen and hope at this point, really don't want to see your stupid little TikTok video from your 6,000 square foot home, knowing you have everything you're going to need, and you will until things get back to normal. And that's great. And I like the fact that a lot of this crap has been shut down. And I think it's actually kind of interesting that some of these celebs have actually had the good sense to realize nobody wants to hear them doing the poor me shit. And in a personal aspect, something I've always wondered is, what the hell makes these people think they're so morally superior and so much better than everyone else that they should be preaching to us and trying to lecture us about how to live our lives? Especially, and a lot of people with public platforms use those platforms to preach their points, and I get it. But the condescension and the talking down to people, like, it's so obvious that you don't see things the way I do, there must be something wrong with you. If you made your money because you're a good pretender, and I'm speaking specifically of the Hollywood elite in this circumstance, the actors and actresses and to a lesser extent the directors, they don't pretend, they steer the pretending. But literally, all these people who made their fortunes by not being themselves, by pretending, by entertaining other people, by letting them watch them pretend to be something else. I respect actors. Did some amateur stuff when I was younger, and I understand there's a certain degree of craft and everything like that. None of that qualifies you to tell anybody else how to live their lives. And I am sick to death of those people. I am so happy to see that the idol worship and the just fawning over these idiots trying to, oh my God, they're so right. They've got all this money. They must know what they're talking about. No, they pretended real good and you paid to see it and they get a cut. That's it. There's no moral qualifications coming from that. There's no subtle gift or grasp that they have that anyone else can't obtain because of their elite status. All they have is more access to resources. And that doesn't make them smarter, that doesn't make them better, and it damn sure doesn't make them more qualified to make up your mind for you. And it was kind of refreshing to see that finally dawning in a lot of people's minds, because these celebs are just so tone deaf to the circumstances at hand. And they are carrying on about their lives like nothing's changed, because for them, nothing has. Minor inconveniences. They have to wear a mask now when they're going to board their private plane or their chartered limos or whatever the circumstances are. They're still going out and living the life that they want to live in a comfort that most of us don't know. And they don't realize when the people that are paying their bills are sitting home eating sugar sandwiches and streaming stuff on Netflix because they don't have the resources to go do anything else. We don't want to hear about how rough it is for you that you had to wear a mask and you could only do whatever instead of what you wanted to do, which was way beyond most people's reaches. You're not inspiring dreams. You're not making anything better for anybody. You're just bragging at that point, especially with circumstances being what they are. And people finally got fed up with the crap. People finally started, and it was great. I tried to avoid a lot of social media stuff when it relates to celebrities and popular culture because it infuriates me. A lot of these people are so damn stupid, but they think they're something special. And it comes back, I keep coming back to the whole, yeah, you pretend real good. You act really well. You're nice to look at. You've got a pleasing voice. Any of these things. And it takes a certain amount of honing and developing. And I respect the people that have to keep themselves in super good shape because it's part of their job. Because they have to look pretty. And I get it. There's a lot of sacrifice involved. But the ones I actually like are the ones who don't walk around acting like it somehow makes them better. There are celebrities out there I do approve of. Most of them keep their business to themselves. They're not constantly whoring for attention. And they still kind of get it. They still realize they're just people. And that's fine. That's fantastic. Like I said, it's as long as you're just trying to spread a message or raise awareness, it's one thing. When you start lecturing and being a preachy asshole, that's when, as far as I'm concerned, you can get in the wood chip with the pedophiles. I don't need to hear your shit. Don't talk down to me. Don't think you're better than me just because you happen to hit that break and got your success. Especially if you got it without really enriching anybody else's life in the process. I mean, you didn't create anything. You didn't invent anything. In a lot of these circumstances, you don't even have input into what you're enacting. It's somebody else wrote the dialogue, somebody else came up with the concepts, and you're just playing the part. And like I said, I'm not trying to devalue art or creativity. I'm just questioning where all these people get the idea that they're somehow morally superior or should be telling anyone else what to think. Particularly if you got there by parroting what other people wrote. And while that's where I may stand on the Hollywood types, it also pours over into the athletes. You got your big fat checks and your stupid amount of a public platform by playing a game. Nobody gives a shit what you think. And like I said, I have no problem with people trying to raise awareness of stuff. I did not have a problem with football players kneeling during the national anthem as a matter of protest, but I do have a problem with when they have to deal with the blowback from doing that, the people who find it unpatriotic. I appreciate everyone that serves in the military because it's a degree of self-sacrifice towards principles, or it's a way to pay for college because that's another broken system we have to deal with too. But ultimately, I understand why people would be offended that people are protesting the national anthem or trying to bring awareness to an issue of corrupt systems and corrupt governments, because those issues do exist and they may not necessarily agree with how people are going about it. But I do respect people's rights to protest as long as it's peaceful, as long as they're not disrupting or destroying anybody else's lives. You have that right. And I may not agree with you, but I will acknowledge that you have the right. That does not mean that every time you see a microphone or a camera, you need to start spouting every little idea that's in your head, because at the end of the day, you already made your point. It's a symptom of a greater thing, I think, that we all need to look at is there is no grace behind these things. The behavior it's crossing the line from making a point or raising awareness to being a sanctimonious asshole. And maybe it's just me personally, I don't react well to that stuff. By all means, say your piece, but do it with a little dignity. If you're going to use a public platform to try and raise awareness and try and generate a movement or a thought in a particular direction, can't do it with a little grace and dignity, then just keep your mouth shut. You're not helping. You're actually harming your own cause, because people are going to go, look at this mush-mouthed idiot. He sounds like a moron. Whatever he thinks must be moronic. And he can't handle himself with any grace or any kind of decorum. So who gives a shit what this guy's got to say? Make your point, be respectful, be polite, and I'll listen to you. I may not agree with you, but being a blowhard, bossy, obnoxious dick is not going to change my mind. And somehow acting like you have a better grasp of a situation because we don't agree with each other, but you think your position somehow makes you more right, is never going to work with me either. And it doesn't work with most people. It was kind of nice from where I'm sitting to see people finally saying, you know what? You need to kind of stay in your lane. And I know some people are going to think I'm not really saying things the way they should be said, but the simple fact of the matter is using your platform is one thing. Being an asshole about it, entirely different matter. I lose a lot of respect and a lot of sympathy towards situations. I mean, there are a lot of things going on that people were protesting that should have been protested, things that need to be fixed. It's the how you go about it that I take issue with. Like I said, I don't have a problem with people kneeling on a sideline because they're trying to make a protest and make a point. I don't have a problem with people saying this is an issue. It's when you start trying to make it into a, since you don't agree with me, you're the asshole. It's not the message, it's the approach to the message. It's the delivery that's the problem. And it was really nice that all of that just went away for a while. It was great. I personally enjoyed the break. And speaking of breaks, we're going to take one right now. We're going to stick another one of these little sponsor ad things in here, and we'll be back in a minute, and we'll wrap this episode up.
I'm Mo Rocca, and I'm excited to announce Season 4 of my podcast, Mobituaries. I've got a whole new bunch of stories to share with you about the most fascinating people and things who are no longer with us. From famous figures who died on the very same day, to the things I wish would die, like buffets. All that and much more. Listen to Mobituaries with Mo Rocca wherever you get your podcasts.
Okay, so that is generally my first thought for how things are. I'm really just enjoying the lessening of the constant barrage of holier-than-thou, self-righteous social figures preaching and trying to act like they're somehow better because they luckied their way into a situation where they're better off financially. And I'm enjoying the whole not having to hear people that are better off financially try and act like that somehow makes them morally or logically superior, because it doesn't. And so that's sort of my rant for this episode. And before we go too much further in, just a couple last thoughts here. I'm going to button this one up, try and keep it a little on the shorter side as opposed to they've been getting longer and longer. And once I get some guests booked, they're probably going to get up to between a half hour and 45 minutes on a regular basis, just so everybody's aware of what's coming. So addressing the sanctimonious, self-righteous ass clowns that come from public figures and all aspects of it, really. We've got self-righteous politicians, we got self-righteous actors, self-righteous athletes, self-righteous musicians. Like I said, I am a huge fan of making your voice heard. I am a big proponent of getting out there and getting your information out. Get your story out there. Get your side out there. Just do it with some grace and some dignity. It's really not super complicated. And that rolls over into everyday life and every single one of us, too. Just be genuine. Be decent. It's not real hard to not be a two-faced, backstabbing soccer mom bitch if you happen to be a soccer mom. If you're a garden variety Joe Schmo punching a time clock from 9 in the morning till 5:30 in the afternoon, you don't have to be the one who's gossiping behind everybody's backs at work. You don't have to be the one that's at work preaching to everybody about how they're living their life is not meeting your standards. Just don't be a prick. It's not a complicated thing. It's not a hard task. It shouldn't be such a hard sell. Just realize, just because it's what you believe doesn't mean anyone else is going to jump on board. Unless you've got some real solid evidence that you are somehow the superior person, and I don't mean your own personal opinion, I mean some objective factual data to back that concept up, have a little dignity, have a little grace, and realize you might not be right. And even if you are, being a prick about it is not going to win you any followers. You're not going to convert anybody by acting like an asshole and telling them how much better than them you are. So my closing thoughts on this whole episode is, like I said, I've really enjoyed the change of pace. I've enjoyed not constantly hearing barrages of other people's opinions every time I turn on the radio or turn on the news. I've enjoyed that a lot of the activism that is being done leading up to this election, and a lot of the things to get people to engage were done with a little more grace and a little more dignity, and even to the extent of the movement by celebrity types to try and drive people to vote. Some of the best go vote ads I saw were for people that flat out said, even if you don't agree with me, go use your vote. Do your civic duty. Be involved in the process. And for what it's worth, it was handled well. It was done well. I saw a certain actress / musician type who did a ad, and I know for a fact there's some political stuff that we don't see eye to eye on, but I respect the hell out of the way she presented her case. It was not preachy or pushy. It was a plea to go do your duty and make your voice heard. Okay, well handled, well played, good job. And a couple of my favorite musicians were very active this past election, trying to get people out there to vote, trying to make a difference. And even though we don't see eye to eye on certain politics and things like that, I still respect the way it was done and the fact that it was done to try and make a difference. It wasn't done by being preachy. It wasn't done by being superior. It was done by explaining why it needed to be done in a logical manner, not stirring up emotions and preaching about how if you don't do things my way, you're an idiot. And it really, honestly, it's not that hard. People respond positively to that stuff. So maybe as you're going through your day, you just keep that in the back of your mind. And so for now, that's what I had to say. Thanks for listening to another episode of I Had to Say It. If you get a chance, check us out on social media. There's a Facebook group, there's Twitter, there's Instagram. I Had to Say It podcast is pretty much the trigger for all that stuff. Or you can check us out online at www.ihadtosayitpodcast.com. There's links to all the social media and to all the platforms that we are streaming on. And there is contact information for any of the restaurants or local businesses or musicians that we've talked to or will be talking to, or anybody I have mentioned in any of the previous episodes. So thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you soon.